All right, y'all, I'm here with the Tahoe, and I was putting everything together, but I thought I'd show you guys before I actually use any of the parts that I bought. But as you guys know, this is the 2000 Tahoe that I've done some videos on it. It's kind of like the daily driver build, but it needed an entire front end redo, so that's what I did. Went on Rock Auto and bought pretty much everything. So I just wanted to show you what I got here, and so anyone that's going to do this job, the parts I went with. So Bilstein 5100 shocks. They also do, I think they're the 4600. I think these are a tad bit stiffer, but these were also for like a lifted application, so I went with that. I think they were good for like a 2-inch lift or something, so it's going to help. It's going to be a little bit longer, or a 3-inch. Then for the control arms, so like I said, I was doing pretty much all the suspension. You can go the route of doing the ball joint obviously and the bushings, but it's a total pain. And I think in total it was only about another $300 for me, or not even, I think it was another $200 for me to just buy new control arms, you know, new uppers, new lowers. Not gonna have to do the pressing and all that yourself. And you guys know how it is, you'll end up breaking one of the ball joints anyways. You have to buy another one, and then, you know, now you only saved like $100, and what's the point? So I just went ahead and bought all of them and bought all fresh stuff. Also more satisfying when you put it in. But for all the suspension, except for this, pretty much this and those end links, is I went with all AC Delco. From the research I did, it seems like most people say to go with that. Moog makes a lot of good parts, but for some reason I know, just be careful with, I believe, the pitman arm. This is the AC Delco pitman arm. I just took the old one off actually, but everyone says that the Moog one's a little bit thicker, I believe, or something like that, and it might not fit right, so just be mindful of that. But I went with all AC Delco, like I said, besides these Quick Steer. There's one of the cheaper brands for the sway bar end links, which really doesn't matter that much, so it doesn't matter. And like I said, for this, mainly I went with Moog for this because I had to get it out of Riley's because I forgot to order it. So this is the bracket for the idler arm. Makes it a lot easier to do the job, so I went ahead and bought it. I bought everything else anyway, so I thought, why not? But so yeah, idler arm, bracket, pitman arm, sway bar end links, outer tie rods, again from AC Delco. So everything AC Delco, outer tie rods, inner tie rods, idler arms right here. I mean, it's all just suspension parts, guys, but you guys know what it looks like. But I went with AC Delco on my Duramax that I had when I did the front end. I always like going with the quality parts, so I went with AC Delco for that. Already told you what I went with for the shocks. Next, kind of what made me do this whole thing, the wheel bearing. So this is the factory hub and spindle and all that. And the wheel bearing went bad. I heard it making a bunch of noise. I put some oil in it, so I was able to freaking move because it was under so much friction. But this is the factory one. This is the whole reason I mainly went ahead and did everything. So I was like, all right, I'm already gonna be there, and everything else was pretty junk too. Like, this is the factory arms. Factory lower. Obviously they're a little worse too because I had to get them out, but still they were in rough shape. So, but back to this is why I did it. Wheel bearing was toast, so of course for the wheel bearing had to go with Timken. That's like the recommendation from every single person when you look up what to do for a wheel bearing. So I only needed one. I thought about doing both sides, but I only went with the one. So new Timken wheel bearing comes with a new sensor because the sensor got toast too when it was heating up in there because there was probably no grease and all that. And lastly, again, this is something that you don't have to do, but I was like, all right, I'm already gonna be there. It had the torsion bars cranked, and that's not the best for the suspension. Redneck seat, you guys know how it is. But it's not, what was I saying? Oh, I cranked the torsion bars for the lift, and that's obviously not ideal for the suspension. Puts it at a weird angle, and it's a little rougher ride. So I started researching, and this is actually a spindle lift. So if I had this off, you'd be able to see it a little better. but it changes where it mounts on the spindle itself, so it raises the suspension without you having to put anything at a weird angle. And it retains the factory ride. So that was the big reason I went ahead and got these. These are a Max Track brand. They were online. I believe the other people that I was looking at was Rough Country. I just went with these because I liked them. So these are 3-inch lift spindles. Of course, since you have the torsion bars, you can raise it up more and get more lift out of it and all that. We're gonna see it fits the tires fine. These are like 33.5, 34-inch tires. So I'm probably gonna kind of just decrank the torsion bars now because they were all the way up to give me the lift, and then just put these on and kind of go from there. I measured where I was at height wise before I did everything. But yeah, those are all the parts I got. Just giving you a little update before I throw everything on. I'm doing it right now. I got that whole side taken apart. I'm not gonna bore you guys with the mechanic side of stuff. There's a million videos on how to install everything here, but I know some people are always kind of curious on what parts to get and everything. Got it all off Rock Auto. Not sponsored by them, but if you're watching this, you know, wouldn't be opposed. Quick tip as well, if you guys are doing the pitman arm on your truck, most of these videos you're gonna see on YouTube, they tell you to take out the steering box. So there's 3 steering box bolts right out here on the outside. But actually the best way to do this, or at least the easiest way to do this, is you just take these bolts out, just loosen them all the way. That's gonna let you kind of swivel the steering arm out of the way. As you can see, it's really easy to do once you do this. Once you get that, it's still connected on the linkage, and I kind of rested on the sway bar so it's not pulling on the linkage. But now, as you can see, I was able to move it in front of the sway bar, so I have full access to this. You can zap the nut off, put the pitman arm puller, and get it right off. But you are going to need this is something I forgot, so that's why I'm telling you guys. You're gonna need a 32mm socket to get that pitman arm nut off, of course, if you're doing this on one of these trucks. So I was letting you know, makes the job a lot easier to do it that way. All right, y'all, so I'm telling you the plan for the rear. Pretty much I got the Bilstein in the back, as you see, which is the same ones on the front, obviously, the 5100s. And then for the spring, what we did, because we're lifting the front up, is I threw Z71 springs in the rear, which are off the 4-wheel drive, obviously. These are off a 2-wheel drive, which are, you know, the factory ones off the truck, and they're 1 inch lower than the Z71 springs. So picked up a set of the 4-wheel drive springs for like 50 or 60 bucks used. Threw those right in. Set of fresh bump stops, as you see. And yeah, just throwing this shock in. I'm just gonna throw the shock in on this side, then the rear will be done. Bolt up that sway bar, and we'll be all set up back here. Drop the rear down. Just gotta mess with the front a little bit, but it's pretty much done, and we can go get an alignment. It's definitely way off up front, but that's kind of the plan for the rear, just so you all know. So it should be 1 inch higher in the rear, and then we'll kind of mess with the torsion bars a little bit up front to get the height perfect. But yep, that's the plan as of right now. So I'm gonna get this other side done. All right, y'all, I was just giving you a quick update. Springs are in on both sides, and the Bilstein shocks are in on both sides. I don't know why it was such a pain to get the shocks in on a Tahoe, but that top shock bolt is a total nightmare to get to. But yeah, both sides are in. I'm about to drop it down. The rear's done. Adjust the tie rod on the front a little bit, and we should be ready to go. All right, y'all, so I'm here. Truck is done. I did the rear like I told you with the Z71 springs and the shocks, so finished that up. The front and both sides are officially done. I already drove the truck, got an alignment. Alignment was crazy off, but it's perfect now. And the truck drives crazy, crazy smooth. But before I put the wheels back on, so I just drove it to the alignment shop and probably drove it 10, 15 miles. But what I always do is, especially when I'm doing everything like this, when you're doing one thing or something, you know, like tie rod, it's not a big deal. But since I did everything for the first, 100 miles at least, I like to check all these bolts, especially over time, to make sure everything's staying tight and everything. Especially when you're dealing with suspension, you want to be sure. So To make it easy, instead of going back and checking every single bolt, I always get a paint marker and I just go ahead and paint mark every single bolt. That way you can just literally crawl under and check and be like, okay, that one's like, you know, go from the nut onto the bolt itself. And you can back, okay, none of those moved, and it's a really easy way to do that. So that's what I'm about to do, but just thought I would show you guys now that it's done. Like I said, max track spindle lift right here. 3-inch, super nice, fit perfectly. Little heads up, if you do get this one, I don't know about other spindles, but for this one, I got a Timken wheel bearing and it fit fine. Well, it didn't fit fine. The whole thing fit, but it had a little gap that I didn't like where it meets the spindle itself. And then the ABS sensor didn't fit perfectly. Right in there, it would hit the spindle. So I ended up getting AC Delco wheel bearings, and they fit perfect. So just a heads up, the OEM bearings fit great, so that's what I got and returned the Timken one. But besides that, everything's pretty straightforward. I told you the tips and the tricks kind of for the pitman and the idler, or the pitman arm. The rest of this stuff's pretty straightforward, but here it is, AC Delco for everything else. Bilstein shocks. Thing rides crazy smooth now. Feels like a brand new truck. So I just wanted to show you guys. I'm going to put the wheels back on and then clean the truck up, and I'll show you kind of an after of how it sits. It sits about 3/4 of an inch taller in the front than the rear now, but looks really good, feels great. Of course, I'll give an update on all the suspension stuff after, you know, a decent amount of miles, but this is how it looks as of right now. So all right, y'all, what is going on? We are finally finished with the Tahoe. Full front end is done. Rear springs are done. You can see how it's sitting now. I waited a little bit to do this video, so I have just about 2,000 miles on the stuff that I did now. I drive quite a bit, so I daily drive this thing. So I was able to kind of put some miles on it, and I wanted to do that before I make this video. That way y'all were kind of able to know that these parts were legit too. It's all OEM, so I knew it was gonna be, but now it's got a good 2K behind it. The thing still drives just perfect. I love this thing. As you can see, it's a little bit taller in the front. It's about an inch taller in the front. The ride height's gonna change a little bit, so I'm not too, it's not like locked in how it's gonna be. So the full suspension is done now, and I did the Z71 springs, so it was higher in the rear. But these tires are like 33.5-inch tires, and they're pretty worn, and they're kind of towards the end of their life. So I'm gonna be getting a new set of tires here soon, and I want to do 315/70 17s. And in order to do that, I'm gonna lift the rear. Another 1.5 with a 1.5-inch spacer, and I'm gonna lift the front more possibly. That's all in the future when I get tires, but just kind of letting you know where we're heading. So that's kind of why the ride height might change, but I just wanted to give y'all a walk around after all the work was done. The thing just drives so dang good now. It looks better, a little taller too. So yeah, ride height might change. More stuff to come definitely, but like I said, I wanted to give you all a good walk around of how it sits. So also, since I did the spindle and not just keys, the front is wider now. So as you can see, compared to the rear, it used to not poke at all. These wheels didn't really have any offset. They said it gives you about a 1/2-inch track width on both sides wider, and you can definitely see it got that. It makes it look way more aggressive in the front in general. Just looks really badass. Looks really aggressive now. Give you a shot from the back. So that is how she is sitting now. Everything is just perfect. I love it. Like I said, I do want to put 35s on this thing. So it's gonna raise, like I said, plan on raising almost 2 inches in the rear and another 2 inches up front. So it'll be sitting even taller, bigger tires. Once I'm down to, once these are finally, you know, done, I'm thinking about the Tahoe open country ATs. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think down below of the whole video, if y'all enjoyed it, if y'all are gonna do a front end rebuild, and how you think the truck looks now, if we should go bigger tires. The answer to should we go bigger tires is always a yes in my book. So pretty sure we're gonna do that. As far as like clearance goes, you can see like here, this piece of the valence came off, but I'm not really dealing with that yet, because I was thinking about trimming here and kind of getting a cut, because it does hit only a little bit on since it got that wider track width now, since the spindle, it just hits a little bit. But I don't really want to trim it. It's enough to where I can just drive it and deal with it, because if I get new tires and I raise the front, I don't know exactly, you know, how much I want to trim off here, and I want to do it right. So that's the only reason why you see this. I'm gonna fix that though regardless. But yep, that is the truck. I hope y'all enjoyed this build series on it. Like I said, the thing just drives so dang good now. I recommend, if any of y'all were thinking about doing this, this is one of the best investments you can do. If you drive an old truck, I mean, this thing's over 20 years old. If you drive an old truck, spend, you know, the $1,300 or $1,200 and get your thing riding nice, because it, let me tell you, it makes a big difference. So that is her, y'all. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned. Like I said, we got more stuff coming on the Tahoe. Let me know if y'all have been enjoying the Tahoe build series. I didn't make videos on this thing for a while. It was just the daily driver, but now I'm kind of tearing into it recently, and I'm kind of getting down with it. So I've been enjoying it. Let me know what y'all think down below. Press that sub button as always. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Peace.